Well, hello everybody. Hopefully you can all see and hear me quite clearly. If you can, give me that virtual wave the hand or a little yes in that chat function. Fabulous. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you all for prioritizing your time today and joining this short bite-sized session we have for you today. I'm not going to come out of share screen. I'm just going to leave that up there. There's so much to get through. Of course, in these bite-sized sessions, it's incredibly punchy. You can imagine to squeeze in lots of information and reflection around these wonderful areas of wellness and health that we focus on here. So thank you so much, each and every one of you, for prioritizing this next 25 minutes or so here that we're going to aim to focus in on and learn a little bit more about building easy exercise routines. Now, if you haven't done so already, please take a short moment and jump straight onto that welcome poll where I've asked some questions, some really reflective questions around how you would self-rate kind of how you're feeling about your current exercise and movement and physical activity habits, and how you currently feel about your progress within your exercise habits. So, and it's really interesting. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing those reflections. And what is interesting is that we have at the moment and people are still dropping in, of the people that have completed the poll so far. 36, almost 40% of those completers actually have scored themselves a 1. So you're very discontent at the moment and feel very out of shape, deconditioned and stuck with it when it comes to your exercise routines. Some of you have scored yourself as high as 8 out of 10, but the rest, of course, are populating those numbers in between. But actually leading the way is the very lowest. And that's really lovely awareness. And thank you for being open and sharing that honest reflection. That's really wonderful. I'm going to leave that poll open for people to jump onto. Let's jump into it. So welcome everybody. And again, thank you for prioritizing you. We're going to jump into the session today. We have literally 20 minutes. It's a bite-sized session. So you can drop in, indulge yourself, invest your time just to fire up that wonderful thinking strategy of a brain that you have, and perhaps we can come up with some sort of plan to move forward with your exercise routines. Now, today we're going to look at understanding the difference between exercise and movement again. We'll go through that today. We'll hopefully kind of point you guys in the right direction about the importance of emotionally connecting with your exercise goal. We talk about it a lot within the Habits for Health program, and the overwhelming connection between connecting with your why and how motivated you feel to move forward with your goals. So we're going to look at how those things can align. We're also going to talk a little bit about kind of the best things that we can do to create an effective exercise program for you specifically, because we're all very unique and individual when it comes to many things. And one of those things is our fitness. Would we all agree? Give me a high five. Would we all agree that we're at different levels of fitness and adherence and motivation and all these sorts of things? So it's all very different. We've got to find ways to connect with what it is that we really desire when it comes for our health, our fitness, our movement, our physical activity, and these sorts of things. And that's going to be one of the key things that we're going to focus on today. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about movement and exercise. Now, within the Habits for Health program, you'll notice that there is one of the modules called Movement Medicine, and this particular module really does focus in on understanding the power of ensuring that we attain the right levels of movement throughout our day. And when we say movement, we're really talking about standing and moving, not sitting. So when we talk about movement, we differentiate between movement and exercise. Movement is something that we do to prioritize optimal well-being for us and to achieve optimal well-being. Exercise, on the other hand, is something a little bit different. Exercise is the additional demand that you will place upon the systems of your body in order to force those fitness adaptations. So there's specific areas of fitness like endurance, strength, speed, balance, flexibility, these sorts of things, that we put a little bit of positive stress on those systems and we force fitness adaptation. Now, when we think about fitness, Fitness is your body's ability to adapt to the stresses and strains that are placed upon them. And when they're kind of thrown into that same scenario again, they're more ready, they're more fitter to cope with those stresses and strains. And that's when we use the word fitness like mental fitness, emotional fitness, and of course, physical fitness. So we differentiate between movement for optimal well-being and exercise specifically for fitness. We would absolutely encourage you to perhaps think of that wonderful visual of movement being the base of the pyramid, and above that, perhaps the next step might be to focus on exercise. So ensuring that we've got enough movement in our day would be kind of the first pillars of physical activity to build into your routines, and that would be awesome. There is a general misconception when it comes to kind of exercise. You can't exercise your way out of poor movement habits. Let me say that again, right? You can't exercise your way out of poor movement habits. So exercise doesn't seem to neutralize the harmful effects of prolonged periods of sitting. Give me a high five. Do you think you sit a little bit too long, or your duration of sitting is too much? And do you think you have trouble interrupting periods of sitting? Do you end up sitting for at least 45 to 60 minutes, perhaps even a couple of hours uninterrupted sometimes? So if you exercise or end up exercising two, three times, four times a week just for 1 hour, but you sit on your bum for 10 hours, 12 hours a day, it's a bit of a misconception that you can exercise your way out of those poor movement habits. So the movement habits become incredibly important to build that first line of defense, to build that springboard into achieving the fitness goals and changes that you want. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Good stuff. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about kind of one of the common problems that we notice is those misaligned expectations and not setting that clearly defined fitness goal that we want. I find this one interesting because would you say your fitness goals may change throughout this year? Give me a high five if you agree. Do you think our goals will change? And it depends on all sorts of things, right? It might be that you're coming up for some sort of celebration. It might be that you have a holiday that you want to get a little bit more prepared for. There might be all sorts of reasons why our goals change throughout our years. And often, our expectations around those goals, they remain the same, but lots of other factors will change. I worked within health and fitness for the best part of 15 years as a trainer and a coach and a therapist. And the key challenge was to really dive in and try and discover with the patient with the client, what is it? What are your motivations? What is it that you really, really desire? What is it that you really are looking to move towards? So let me ask you, and feel free to share in the chat function. I know it's quite broad at the moment, and I do encourage you to watch the modules within the Habits for Health program. Building easy exercise routines, watch that module because it goes into a little bit more detail. But what would you say is your exercise goal at the moment? Is it longevity, function, someone dropping straight in, vitality, longevity, function, vitality? Is it performance? Perhaps you're working towards like a couch to 5K, or perhaps you want to get better at tennis, or you want to get better at golf, or you want to get better at a sport. So you want to improve that performance. Perhaps you want to get faster at achieving a certain distance on a bike, for example. Perhaps there's a charity event that you're working towards, so you're working towards that kind of performance. Perhaps it's fat loss. Perhaps it's to do with your aesthetic. Perhaps it's to gain a little bit of muscle. Perhaps it's something else. Someone said here to build a little bit more core strength, which is a wonderful one. Very, very specific, which is lovely. And again, what this does, it gives us a little motivation, doesn't it? It just points us in the right direction and just taps us on the shoulder every now and again and just reminds us, okay, well, these are the reasons why exercise is going to be important for me. So first step here is to really point yourself in the right direction. And then we're asking, of course, how are you going to measure your progress within that particular area? So if you've highlighted longevity, function, vitality, those sorts of things, how are you going to know you're progressing? How are you going to measure where you are right now, and what sort of metrics are going to be beneficial for you to know that you're progressing? And it's the same with fat loss. It's a little bit more objective with fat loss, isn't it? So we can actually get a physical objective for eating. You can use your belt, those sorts of things. Muscle gain, again, it's an objective measurement, and also it might be that you measure the intensities at which you work now versus those intensities at which you might work in a month or two. So how are you going to measure that goal? And then these are big questions that need to sit down and kind of iron it out a little bit. But that's the first step, to identify what direction you want to move towards. The second one is what do you feel might be your biggest obstacle to achieving your exercise goals? Share with me in the chat function. What obstacles or speed bumps, what do you think might trip you up when you think about your lack of time constraints, right? Busy schedules, work schedules, family schedules, a challenge with the mental health, the motivation, the mental hurdles that we might face. Perhaps there's a fear of failure, or a low confidence, a low self-esteem. Sometimes, I don't know if any of you have ever joined a gym, perhaps you are a member of a gym, but can you kind of think back to the first time you walked into that sort of environment? We felt all the eyes were kind of on us, right? But that's not quite the case, is it? No one really cares. No one gives a monkeys. But we think that might be the case sometimes for us. So there's that fear, isn't there? So motivation, those mental hurdles. There might be physical limitations that we have. Terrified of going to the gym, yeah. And do we all agree, give me a high five, that you do not have to go to a gym to exercise? Do we all agree? Absolutely, right? I got up this morning and my wife's an early bird. She gets up silly o'clock at like 5:15. I come downstairs around about 6 and she's in the front room, just doing her little workout with her little dumbbells and a mat in the front room this morning. So you do not need to join a gym to move. You can be the architect of your exercise routines. You do not have to join a gym to move. Fabulous. So we've spoken about those barriers, and remember, you know, as it says, up on the slide here, in a perfect world, you can build every habit you set your mind to. We don't live in a perfect world, though, right? Do we all agree life is difficult? Do we all agree that life gets in the way of your wonderful plans that you have when it comes to your exercise routine? Is that something that we can all agree, right? We can all agree that our environment is littered with these prompts, with these reminders that actually say, no, don't do this. Do something else over here. It's a little bit easier if you did this as opposed to doing that. So this just reminds us that life does get in the way, and it is okay to be self-compassionate. It is important that we are kind to ourselves when our plans don't quite materialize. We'll talk about that in a moment. So steps 1 and 2 are very, very important. Understanding those barriers, kind of connecting with those barriers, and then that invites us then to talk about those barriers and to come up with some sort of solutions to overcome those difficulties when they arrive. Click. There we go. Now, within your Habits for Health program, one of the modules, as you're aware, is building easy exercise routines. And within this module, we talk a lot about your FITT principle, your workouts, and how you design workouts. Now, the FITT principles it's a tried and true method for pulling together, an efficient and an effective workout plan. And it's actually very, very useful if you haven't experimented with this already. It's very, very useful if you're someone who really thrives on structure. And you can think of these different components of the FITT kind of workout here. You can think of those different components as a set of rules for you to follow. And it's also very useful for monitoring exercise progress, as we'll go into in a moment. But I want to introduce you, to break it down, because some of you said that you're feeling a bit stuck, you don't know where to start. And this might be a very simple way to look at exercise and then pull it all together in a way that really fits with you and your limitations when it comes to fitness and motivation, and also your limitations when it comes to your environments as well and your lifestyles. So let's talk a little bit about these three types of workouts. Now you can see here, the first one we've got through is breakthrough. Now breakthrough are types of workouts, as you can see here, when we look at frequency versus intensity versus the type of workout versus the time that you spend doing and engaged in that breakthrough workout. So the frequency is, of course, how often. The intensity is how hard does it feel for you. And the type of activity, of course, involve these sorts of activities, these sorts of training methods that really we're pushing ourselves very hard. So the intensity is really, really high, which means the duration is typically going to be a lot shorter. Okay. Now these are not set in stone. You know, it's typical that if you're going to sprint as hard and as fast as you can, that you're not going to do it for 3 miles, right? Because we'll only get about 150 yards if we were working max. So there is that inverse relationship, isn't there, between intensity and volume. So with breakthrough, we're focusing on intensity and experimenting with different types of activities that are very challenging for us, where we're very out of breath when we finish the activity that we're doing. Then we have click the baseline activities. And as you can see here, the intensity drops somewhat. And here we're doing it for longer periods of time. And this gives us slightly different benefits, right? Each of these intensity, these different types of workouts give us different benefits. So it depends on your exercise goal as well. So as it says, you know, which types of these exercise approaches are most aligned to your fitness goal. So baseline is lower intensity for longer duration. Breakthrough is higher intensity for shorter duration. And longevity, as you can see here, it's not about the intensity, it's just about the enjoyment. So for me, I incorporate my dog walks every single day as longevity and vitality and function workouts. I call them workouts, I call them exercise for me. I also kind of allow them to cross over as part of my stress management workout. So one of the things that I can do to calm a busy, overstimulated brain, and it works brilliantly well for me, is to go out for a walk. But I also mark that down as a longevity activity for me, or an exercise for me. So now we're starting to really kind of get to grips with how we can utilize this FITT plan. Now within your, let me just do this. Hopefully this works. Give me a high five. Can you see my Wellbeing People account? Has it come up on your end on the screen? Yeah? Okay, fab. So this is your landing page when you go into your Habits for Health account. And if you go to additional resources, if I just click on additional resources here, you'll notice it says Habits for Health resources. If I click on that one, oh, it's just kicked me back out again. Let me log back in. I knew that was going to happen. There you go. Yeah, so we've gone into the Habits for Health resources, and you can see downloadable resources here, and you'll see all of the downloadable accompanying resources for each of the modules that you experience within the program. Now, if I go to down here to see where it says FITT plan, if I click on FITT plan, we've then got a downloadable resource that you can utilize. You can print off, you can save this as an editable version, and you can complete it online. So you can start to kind of populate this workout plan. What baseline workouts are you going to choose to do, if any? What breakout workouts are you going to choose to do, if any? What longevity workouts are you going to focus on? When we start to look at habit design, we start to think about, okay, well, what am I planning on doing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and at the weekend? What time of day am I going to work out? Where am I going to work out? There's a really interesting study that they did recently that most of us will just write down, oh yeah, I'm going to go for my exercise walk at 5 o'clock on Tuesday. But what they learned was when you add the place, so in this case, you would say, I'm going to go for my exercise walk at 5 o'clock on Tuesday, and I'm going to walk around this particular lake, for example. When you add in just that extra piece of information, that where you're going to do, what you're going to do exactly, and which way you're going to do it, and how you're going to do it, that extra piece of information actually drove adherence up to about 90% of those people that added in that little bit more information. So when we start to write things down, start to populate it, we start to bring it alive for ourselves. So this is within your program, your Habits for Health program online account. You can access that at any time. Fab, let me do that. Hopefully we're back. Give me a high five. Can you see the main slide deck again? Does it come back up your end? Yeah, fab. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so we get an idea, don't we, now about kind of baseline breakthrough longevity. It might be just thinking about the intensities that you're working at, thinking about what you want, what's the result of the activity that you want. So do I want to improve my cardiovascular fitness? Is that going to help me lean a little bit or take a step towards my goal? Then great. Am I going to focus more on breakthrough, a little bit more intensity? So I'm going to drive and develop my strength, my speed, my power, my recovery, my stamina. Or is it going to be more longevity? More of my exercise routines are perhaps going to involve more longevity, more functional activities. So we start to break it down. Perhaps you guys have heard of this. This is the rate of perceived exertion. Now, many of us might wear kind of wearables and smartwatches and things like that that will give us insight into our intensity. So, for example, if you're walking on the treadmill or going out for a walk, if I said on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard do you feel like you're working right now when you're out walking? This is a subjective rating of how hard you feel you're working. So you're evaluating things like your breathing rate, your sweating rate, your muscular discomfort. You're saying to yourself, I feel on that scale of 1 to 10, if 1 is very light, resting, light activity, and 10 is maximal, near impossible for you to continue, where do you feel you're working at right now? And this could be a very useful tool to utilize if you haven't quite got a smartwatch to tell you. Now, hopefully many of you will be working at number one. Thanks in the chat for just letting everyone know you're at number one. Unless you've been standing watching this and doing a few kind of movement activities, then it might be bouncing up a little bit higher. So the rate of perceived exertion is a very useful tool, as I said, and hopefully it mirrors the real intensity, because some people, when I say to them, or used to say to them, on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard do you feel like you're working? And they were like, well, actually, seeing as you're asking, Grant, I think it's it must be 8 or 9. And then when I actually look at their heart rate, in reality they're only really at a 5 or a 6. So we want your rate of perceived exertion to, of course, mirror as closely as possible your actual heart rate. But it's a useful tool and one that you can utilize when you're thinking about your baseline, your breakthrough, and your longevity workout. Remember, breakthrough workouts, high intensity, short duration, baseline workouts, low intensity, slightly longer duration, and longevity activities, vitality activities, functional activities that you enjoy. It's not about the intensity, it's about the enjoyment of the activity. That counts as exercise. So what have I learned? Crikey, as I said, I spent a number of years in that environment. What kind of resonated with me with these few things here? It's really important that you make it fun, you make it novel, engaging. That kind of supports your motivation. I think we can all agree we're much more likely to do things again if we're enjoying the things that we do. We're much more likely to want to go and do it again. So think about the types of equipment that you might need if you are going to kind of create a little routine for yourself every morning or at home. Think about the types of equipment that you might require. Think about the people that you're going to spend your time with. Think about driving accountability. Who's going to hold you to account? Is it going to be me? Is it going to be yourself? Is it going to be a friend? Are you going to create that group accountability? Is it going to be a professional? Are you going to lean in and ask for a little bit of support with those fitness professionals? If you have that option, then fantastic. Think about your environments. Think about experimenting with new activities. Interestingly, when it comes to happiness and life satisfaction, contentment, positive psychologists have identified physical activity, specifically novel, new physical activity, as one of the key factors that improves and increases happiness, life satisfaction, and contentment. So find ways to make it fun for you, find ways to make it novel, engaging, motivating for yourself, whatever that looks like. I'm here for a bit of support to do that. So is my colleague Karen. So you can reach out to us here at Wellbeing People, and you can contact us at hello@wellbeingpeople.com, and we'll get back to you and we'll try and create 15-20 minutes or something to have a little chat, just to kind of get to grips with where we are. The next one, frequency trumps intensity. Do we all agree? Frequency trumps intensity. Absolutely. To drive that habit, to drive that routine. It's not about setting world records. Okay. And this is really important. And that's why I've added the words to begin with, because if you've got goals of improving fitness, it's really important that we start to place the right level of stress and strain upon the systems to force those adaptations. Frequency first, intensity second. So that frequency can come in the form of adherence to how many times are you going to exercise each week? And then frequency becomes how many times are you going to do a specific type of training, whatever that looks like to you. So remember, frequency always trumps intensity to begin with. And then we want to, as you start to develop fitness and become stronger and fitter to the stresses, we start to then think about upping the intensity slightly. And the last one, very important, I touched on it earlier on, embrace that no model mindset. What the hell does that mean? So here, embrace that idea that life will get in the way sometimes, and we have to be self-compassionate. We have to be kind to ourselves. We have still got that progress mentality, that progress mindset. As long as I'm trying something, I'm either going to win or learn. I'm never going to lose. So it's about having that kind of try stuff kind of mindset, having that bias to action, really leaning in on it and saying to yourself, I'm going to give it a try, even if it's just a few minutes. You know, we're gonna give it a try. There is so much more that we can talk about. I think it's really important to connect with that idea that, you know, if we do, I think sometimes the phrase is what, fall off the wagon sort of thing. You know, that's an opportunity to reflect and learn, but then, you know, we refocus our attention on tomorrow, we re-energize, we re-motivate, and just focus on that next day. I don't like saying the word just there. It implies it's going to be easy. It takes practice, it takes persistence and awareness. So continue to do those things. Conscious of time, it was meant to be 20 minutes, but it never will be. I was having a bit of banter with my colleague Karen this morning, and she was saying, you're never going to be able to do that in 20 minutes. And I said, I know, I won't be. Establishing your new habit. Remember, we talk about this every bite size. Ensure that your habits, your program that you're going to kind of create for yourself, ensure that it's simple and accessible and manageable to begin with. And you do the things that you enjoy doing. Because even on those days when you're not feeling quite up for it, you can still access that habit because you've got the discipline, you've got the motivation to do it, because it's nice and simple and accessible. Remember, take charge, persevere and practice, and you'll discover that exercise will unlock that sense of mastery, self-mastery, confidence and calmness inside of you. Remember, within your Habits for Health program, there are a couple of modules on movement medicine. If you haven't watched Movement Medicine already, I absolutely encourage you to dive on movement medicine as well, if you're going to be building easy exercise routines into your day-to-day lives. If anyone has any questions, please drop them in. I'm going to stay online for a few more minutes if anyone wants to hang around and ask a question. But please feel free to ask a question. Perhaps there's something that's been bugging you about your own exercise routine. Perhaps there's something that you want to ask. Please feel free to drop in the question if you want to. Just drop it in that chat function. Before I do that, I should actually launch the poll. There we go. Let's do that. Okay, I've launched the feedback poll. Please feel free to complete the feedback poll before you leave today. Remember, we are here as a safety net. I am here for you guys to contact, to reach out to, and to support you on your journey. So if you have any questions, if you want to run by any ideas, or you create your fit plan and you think, oh, that's, I wonder what Grant thinks about it. I wonder what the other coaches think about it. Feel free to connect with me. We are here for your support and your success. Outside of that, does anyone have any questions? Please feel free to drop them in. No? Other than that, thank you so much. Remember, this session has been recorded, so feel free to rewatch it again if you choose to. But I would encourage you to learn a lot more and to kind of plan, schedule and complete your habits for health investment this week, and watch one of those modules. See how you get on.